let's go through some of the thought process here and why people are hyping up, in my opinion, completely unfairly overhyping this uranium market, right? Take a look at the graph of Paladin, right? We hear that, a number of people, including, let's say Rick Rule brings up the Paladin story. And I had a friend a guy I knew who made $30 million trading Paladin last cycle, right? So $30 million, it's a nice pass, right? So this Paladin went from a few pennies, 5, 10 cents to the $10 range, right? We all heard that story, but we don't hear the story that went from $10 down to the few pennies yet. So that was a pretty good round trip, right? And everybody expects them to be, everybody expects themselves to be smarter than everybody else. And, oh, don't worry, I'll get out at the top and I won't be too greedy. I won't be well, anyways. So, it was basically one of these up, down. And then because it was so hyped up the sector, there's rumors of 400 to 600 juniors at the time, right? So let's take a mid number. Let's say 500 juniors for argument's sake. And why did I believe the market was turning, and when did I get out of, uranium last cycle? And I did because I said, this is absolutely ridiculous. We've got diamond companies converting to uranium companies. You've got, anybody with a shell, all of a sudden, it wasn't a gold shell, it wasn't a diamond shell, it was a uranium shell. And everybody's got this uranium property that their Uncle Ted used to own up in Saskatchewan somewhere, and they just throw it in there, and next thing you know, they had a big market cap, right? And but what really did it for me, and where I was telling all my friends to sell, was when I looked at it with 500, I said to them, the math, it comes down to this pretty simple math. I said, there's 500 uranium companies out there, assuming each one has $2 million in just SG&A, right? It's typical overhead to pay for the IR person, to pay for the CEO and, fancy dinners, fancy lunches, travel to wherever they want to travel to, and going to mining conferences and partying it up a bit, buying drinks for guys at the bar. Like, this is $2 million a year, right? So you take 500 times $2 million, you're looking at $1 billion. Uranium's important, but the stock market's not going to fund the uranium market $1 billion a year just for overhead, let alone the multiple billions those same companies would ideally like to spend on exploration, right? And do we need like 500 new uranium projects? No, we don't. The ones producing the bulk of the uranium in the world today are just a handful, and they're producing lots of it. And so that was my view when it was about to turn. And in a panel at VRIC recently, they asked me, so Warren, what's a good way of predicting when the market's going to be overdone here? And I said, well, last time it got up to 500. Let's assume when you see 200 uranium juniors out there, that might be a time to say, well, things are a little overheated. We don't need 200 uranium juniors. Maybe it's just time to start, piecing out some paper.